Thanks for having me here today. I've had the privilege of being a guest here a few times, and I want you to know that, as Landon mentioned, we have one child, my wife and I. She's currently 8 months pregnant with our second, and I'm leaving this morning, and she's sitting down, her hands go on her stomach, her eyes get real wide, and she says, "Bill, I think this is it." And I said, "Sweetheart, baby darling, I love you. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, you just let me know. We're in this together. I'll be by your side 100% every step of the way, as long as it's after 1:30 today." So it was very important for me to be here, so thanks for having me. All right, so, Sandler training, we're sales trainers. Sometimes I don't like that term, especially in groups like this, because, this is the sales and marketing society, for crying out loud. If you guys don't know how to sell, we're doing something wrong. So let's say, everybody here is probably pretty good at what they do. Fair? Been doing it for a while. We have our jobs, paid for today's admission, pay our mortgage, at least most of the time. So when we come to a talk like this, I recognize we have a lot of seasoned professionals in the room. So what I don't want to do is come and say, here's Sales 101. But maybe address a couple things that, regardless of how good we are, regardless of how long we've been doing this, regardless of how seasoned and tenured and accomplished we are, anybody runs into problems. And let's welcome. Let's make a mini contract. If you need a refill or you got to eat something noisy, you need to crunch your ice, that's okay. I'm not going to be offended. Let's make the noise we need to make. So usually when I give a talk like this, you have options of whether or not you wanted to be here today. Some of you may come every month just as a function of being a member, but maybe some of you came hoping to get something specific. Or maybe when you read the description of the talk, talking about the buyer-seller dance and why buyers control the sales process and how we as salespeople, we deal with things like long sales cycles. We deal with things like people telling us our stuff's too expensive or somebody can do it cheaper. Or we're not getting in front of enough new prospects. Or when we get in front of a hot prospect, we have an awesome meeting, and then we leave and we're like, I got one. And we never hear from them again. Maybe you had something cross your mind, or maybe there's something that stands in your way that, as we get into the talk, we can address these things specifically. That way it's really pointed to what's going on in y'all's world. So what are some of the things that you deal with consistently out there in the marketplace as you're trying to get in front of new people and grow your business? I'll write them up here on the board. Overwhelming response. Thank you so much. Hey, Mark. I'll think about it. You'll think about what it is that you struggle with? Or, is that? Oh, okay, gotcha. I'll think about it. Okay, what else?
Too expensive.
Too expensive.
Word of mouth works well.
I'm sorry, who said that?
Sorry.
Yeah.
We do word of mouth, or we work well off of word of mouth.
Okay.
Versus paid ad.
WOM. We'll know what that means, if that's okay. So word of mouth works. We don't need to do anything else. I've got people lining up to talk to me. You don't understand. I'm good. Been doing this a long time. What else?
I've done radio before in Denmark.
Your stuff doesn't work. I know there's no way I'm going to spend the money to do that. Doesn't work. Okay. Call me next week. Call me. Sure.
Happy with current provider.
Is it okay if I write fine? That is my least favorite four-letter F word. Because you don't sound especially intelligent when you say it, and it's really a nothing word. I'm fine. I'm happy with what I got. So fine. Anything else?
I've got to talk to my partner.
Oh, yeah. All right, DM for decision maker.
Yeah.
This is really great. This is a great presentation. You've done a wonderful job putting this together. And there's definitely a probability that we might evaluate something possibly similar to this at some point in the future, hypothetically. So I'm going to run this up the flagpole and talk to my partner about it, and we'll get back to you. Okay, DM. Anything else? One or two more? No?
It's not measurable.
Be more or less.
Trackable or measurable.
As in your product? Okay. Not measurable. Yeah, I probably can't help with that one. Sorry. Okay. So all this should be enough to get us through probably 3 or 4 hours for part 1. And then we'll regroup for part 2. Okay, so we're all good at what we do. And we all do a lot of hard work out there. I know a lot of you won't be able to see this, but this is for me. It's not for any of you. So we're all good at what we do. We all go out there, we get in front of people, we close business. And typically the first step that we use in evaluating what happens to get us in these spots, I'll think about it. At some point in the future, we might, look at this, or let me talk to my partner about this. Our first step is let's evaluate the process that we use to get there. So if we're in a selling situation, and by the way, I forgot, who's my time person? Is that you?
No, it will now.
Will you let me know when I have 5 minutes?
I will.
Thank you. So, where was I? At 5 minutes? I'll think about it. Yeah, thank you. So we're in front of our prospects. They're saying, I think about it, whatever. How do we get there? So when we look at the big picture of selling and what we do to work the process and close business, let's assume we're in front of somebody. Let's assume we've talked about the ducks on the wall and go Tigers and hotty toddy and all that stuff. What's the first thing that we do as a salesperson to try to move somebody through the selling process?
Ask questions.
Okay. Why do we ask questions? Find the need. Fair to say maybe we looking for pain. Maybe a discovery or something like that. Discovery. There's a C in there, I promise. Okay. So we ask the questions, we uncover the needs, we find their pain, we do the discovery. We take all that information, and then we do what with it?
Show value.
How do we do that?
Show them how you can take away their pain and solve their needs.
Okay, so we take all the information, we show them, we put it back to them. What format do we typically put it back to them? A proposal. Fair, everybody? We agree on that? So we propose, show value. Then what happens? Hold on. You jump right from the proposal to the follow-up?
Create urgency.
We close. Close the business. We create urgency. Can't make any guarantees about what the price is going to be next week. So we close the business. We close the business, and we either get a yes or a no, right? 100% of the time, one of those two. And we do get yeses. Again, like I said, we're good at what we do. We're professionals. We do enough of this. We're gonna make progress. We get the think about it that Jeremy talked about earlier. But how often do we actually get an actual no? A lot of the time, or not a lot. They actually hear the words no come out of somebody's mouth. I'm not doing business with you. Not very often. So we get some yeses. We get some of these. I'll put TIO for think it over. But ultimately, we don't really get a lot of these. And then, sir, I think you were just a couple steps ahead of me. Then what do? Follow up. So we follow up. Hey, Tom. Bill Piper. You know, just blowing the dust off of your file folder here. Wanted to touch base, because that's what we do when we're following it. We're touching base. And see if anything's changed. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you solve your needs, fix your problems. Thanks. Right? You know, we're following up. We're doing what we can to get in touch with people. Fair? So how do we feel about this? Do we feel like this is pretty accurate, descriptive of what we do? Okay. So, trying to find some place to put this. Pardon? Oh, right here? Good idea. Thanks.
We got 4 sides on this.
Okay, good deal. So let's pretend you're all fired. Great news, right? Rainy day, we all lose our jobs. All of a sudden, we turn our sales guy hats around and we're buyers. So what's the first word that comes to mind, honestly, truly, in your gut, when I say sales guy? Nah. Don't want it? Don't want any. Don't bother me, please. What else?
What's the best discount you can give me?
Yeah, give me your discount. That's the only thing you're good for, discounts. What else? I'm sorry? Insincere, pushy, aggressive, money hungry, sleazy. Fair? I mean, culturally, we just don't like salespeople. I might like to point out a little bit of irony right now that, I mean, this is what we do, right? And this is how we feel about salespeople. Yes, sir?
Well, I look at a salesperson, how can you help me? You know, I've got a solution in my mind. Between the two of us, you might have a better solution than I thought of. I mean, maybe I'm printing a brochure and, you know, I'm worried about it costing $1,000. You might have a $1,050 solution that's a much better solution.
Sure.
So I'm looking at a salesperson for new ideas and saying, all right, how can I do something better for my client?
Okay. Yeah. So that's what we call intellectual humility. You know, you're obviously a better person than I am. You know, if I look back a couple years ago, it was a rainy Saturday afternoon, not unlike this. My wife's transmission went out. We just had a baby, our first child, our son Henry. And it's a rainy Saturday afternoon. We pile everybody into the car, go out to the car lot, walk out there. I've done all the research online. Somebody walks up to me, sir, what can I help you find today? What do I say? Nothing, I'm just looking. It's just, you know, this is how I really like to spend my Saturday afternoons. Rainy, dreary, you know, beautiful. My wife's in the car with a crying infant. Couldn't think of a better way. So, you know, maybe that's not everybody, but, yeah?
As someone who spends most of the time selling, I'm occasionally on the buying side, and I love the opportunity when the salesperson calls me, because I use it, I'm making a role play scenario, where I want to see how they do, you know, so I can try to learn from them, see how good their sales skills are, and maybe I can pick up something. And by the way, if they have something I really need or that can help me, that's an added bonus.
Yeah, so we test their mettle a little bit.
In that
So-
scenario, you also learn what not to do.
Right, yeah. So, but yes, ma'am?
I actually think a good sales guy really likes another good sales guy, and we sometimes buy even when we don't need it because we really appreciate what they're doing and what they bring to the table.
Sure.
I think a good sales guy can be sold by any other good sales guy. 'Cause you just
Okay,
like-
fair. That's fair. So, culturally, though, do we like salespeople? And when I walk up to, you know, if I'm walking up to somebody and they're asking me what I can do for them, you know, whether it's, you know, whether I'm at Best Buy, whether I'm buying a car, whether, you know, I'm at an open house, walking through, you know, well, you happen to be on the market for a new home today? Oh, we're just passing through, just looking. What are we doing? If that's the first step in our buying process, or a cultural buying process, what are we doing right from the get-go?
Making them say no for one thing.
Deflecting, making them say no. But if I'm withholding information or providing some sort of disingenuous response, it's maybe less than 100% honest. What do we call that? Lying. That might be a little harsh. You know, we'll say mislead just so we all feel better about ourselves, except for the gentleman in the bow tie. He can feel really good about himself right now. So we lie, we mislead a little bit. Why do we do that?
You don't want to be sold.
We don't want to be sold. We got to protect ourselves. Because we don't, put the guard up. You know, if I let this guy know exactly what I'm trying to do and exactly how much money I'm willing to spend, what are they going to do with that information?
Take advantage of it.
They're going to take advantage of me. So I'm playing games. I'm testing their mettle. I'm seeing what they got. But when it comes down to, figuring out what they do, go back to that same scenario a couple of years ago when I was buying the car. I knew everything there was to know about it. I mean, I knew what the invoice was. I knew what the going rate per the mile. I mean, I knew everything about the trim levels, all this stuff. But I'm like, yeah, hey, let's. I might want to drive it, try it out, see how it feels. Okay, well, this feels pretty good, like the leather, all that stuff. Let's talk about this. Can we deal? Let's talk about what kind of deal you could work for me. We do the game with the guy here, and then I'm like, I'm doing my wife's Lamaze exercises in the middle of like this price conversation. I don't know. And then he goes and gets the guy in the back, and they come back out. Well, hey, we'd love to be able to help you. And so what do I do? I'm getting their best what? I'm getting their best price. Yeah. And so I get their best price, and I have all the information about what they're willing to do. I take that from them without giving them anything in return, no commitment, no expectation of anything. I just take it. And then before I leave, I say, hey, there's probably, you probably don't do this. But it would really help if we maybe got to drive it around for a little bit. Maybe we could borrow it over the weekend, bring it back on Monday. Of course, I didn't really do this. This is all hypothetical. Oh, yeah, sure. Take it, drive it, see how you feel. And what do I do with it? Take it to the dealership across the street. Hey, so-and-so can give me this car for this much. What can you do? So I've taken somebody's information from them without giving them anything in return, and I use it against them. When I take something from somebody, what do we call that?
Steal.
Yeah, we're stealing. So we steal. In my mind, there's really not another way to sugarcoat that. I'm trying to figure out maybe it's borrow, but I don't give it back. And then when I go back and I take the car back and I've got the better deal or whatever it is, and they're trying to close me, what do I do?
Negotiate.
What does that sound like?
When they're trying to close you?
Yeah, when they're trying to close me.
Yeah, you're coming back and saying, well, the guy next door is giving me this price.
Hey, so-and-so can do this. It's kind of tall. It's an SUV, and we don't have any of those, the running boards. And my wife's not short, but I want to be sure that she can totally get up in it. And we just need to think about it for a little bit. What am I doing? Stalling or falling, as the case may be here. So we stall. Maybe we throw up some objections. And then I leave. I make the mistake of giving the guy my cell phone number. And, but he calls me. Mr. Piper, really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know you and your family. Really appreciated the opportunity to help you out with your needs. Been a couple weeks since we've heard from you. Just curious if you've, and I go, boo-doop. I canceled the voicemail playback on the Bluetooth in my new car. So I'm hiding, disappear, right? At this point, the salesperson gets unlimited access to my voicemail. They can call me as many times as they like, and I'm gone. So we lie, we steal, we manipulate, we stall, and we hide. How do I look right now in this position? I feel really good about it. And we hide. So, I'm going to do the front here. Can we do that? Chris, can you help me? All right, thanks.
Good.
Not perfect, but good enough. So, how do we feel at the end of this? I mean, and make no mistake, I 100% support the notion that this system works. It's made a lot of people a lot of money over the years. You know, you rely on the law of large numbers. You get in front of enough people, you get in front of enough no's, you're going to get yeses, you're going to find business. Just tough it up, stick it out, and get out there. Close the business. Put the coffee down. Right? So this works. No argument there. But how do we feel at the end of this? Motivated or unmotivated? You know, and when we're in the middle of this process, do we feel esteemed? I loved what you said, Bruce. I thought, how perfect is what you're doing? The best salespeople in Memphis, talking about how often do we feel appreciated for what we do? Because people in general, you know, salespeople, greedy, sleazy, pushy, aggressive. So, how do we fix this? Well, the first step that we look at is like if culturally people feel this way about salespeople, we have to do something to totally change the game. So, in our minds, our belief is because, yes, the system works, and yes, people have used it for a long time and made a lot of money doing it, but because of that, buyers know everything that we're doing. And they have, and we have, subconsciously and organically developed our own process to circumvent them and cut them off at the knees because we have all the leverage. Because we have the what? We got the money. So until I give up my money and I want something in return from them for my money, I have all the leverage as a salesperson. And so if we need to interrupt this programming of how buyers go out and buy, and we need to circumvent this process, we have a belief. Behave 180 degrees opposite of what a salesperson does. Who's seen that Seinfeld episode? That George is, all of his instincts are proving to be wrong. He's at the diner, and they notice this woman across the way smiling at him. And Elaine's like, George, that woman's smiling at you. And he says, Elaine, bald 40-year-old men that live with their parents don't approach nice-looking women in a diner. And they said, George, do the opposite of what your instinct's telling you. And he said, do the opposite. He walks up, do the opposite, do the opposite, do the opposite. And he says, I couldn't help but notice you were looking at me from across the way. And she says, oh, yeah, we ordered the same thing for lunch. He says, my name's George. I'm unemployed, and I live with my parents. She says, hi, I'm Sharon, or whatever her name is. So if people all along the way are expecting us to try to close them, always be closing, if people are expecting us to close them, how do we behave in a manner that's opposite of what they would expect? And if the answer is going to be no, do we want to find that out after 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever it is? Or do we want to find that out early on? So if people feel this way about salespeople, what's the first thing that we need to establish with our prospects and buyers? A relationship. Absolutely. What are some of the things that go into creating a relationship? Trust. That's exactly what we believe. So in our process, we have 7 steps. We put the proposal down here. Because we got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that before we propose, before we try to close the business, we need to make sure that everything fits. So if we're establishing trust, we'll say that the first two sections up here go into establishing trust. First step, bonding and rapport. Not unfamiliar, right? And we're all probably really good at this. Does anybody think they're really bad at getting people to talk to them and have a conversation? Right? So, what are some of the things that we do to break the ice or bond and develop a rapport?
Ask questions about them.
Ask questions about them.
Take them out.
Take them out. What kind of questions are we going to ask them?
Personal. Do you have kids?
Personal, hey, talk to me about the kids. Open-ended questions.
Background of the business, how long you've been there.
Yeah, how long you been there? And what types of things are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to accomplish in a process where we're developing a relationship and we're asking these questions? Understand, let's say a little bit before that, before we get into those things. Commonality. What do we get out of commonality? Connection. Fair to say that we might want them to like us? Likability. So maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. But in our belief, there are three things at play in a relationship: like, trust, and respect. Which one of these is the most important? Trust. And yeah, it's great to ask about the kids. It's great to find some commonality. Those are all things that we can use along the way to develop trust. But what are the things that really develop trust, like for us in our own brains? What types of things enable us to trust somebody?
Follow through,
Follow through,
eye contact.
timeliness, eye contact,
Genuineness.
genuineness,
Put their needs first.
put their needs first. We don't have an agenda. One of the big things that we talk about in this process is there's a great book, and I do another full talk on this topic. I think some of you have seen it, called The Trust Factor. There are a few factors in the trust factor: credibility, reliability, and integrity. We can be stellar in all three of those things. We can be knocking it out of the park. We can be the most credible person in our industry. We can have the most knowledge about our products. We can have the most experience. I can have the highest reliability where I call people back, and I can have the highest integrity to where I'm the same person every moment, in public, in private, no matter what, no matter who. They say peer pressure and duct tape are the two strongest pressures in the universe. So no matter how much peer pressure, whatever, I'm going to be an oak tree and stand firm in my feet. But all of that is weighted over a factor of selflessness or self-orientation. And if we have any degree of self-orientation, what does that do to our ability to really generate trust? Compromises it. And so it may not be anybody here, but in general, how many, maybe some of us struggle with this, but how many salespeople do you think go into a sales call, go into a meeting, feeling like they got to make the sale? They got to close the deal. Things are really slow this month. I really got to make something happen. And who is all that about? It's all about us. And then there are other things that go into trust, like common expectations. That's where we, all right, UFC, that stands for upfront contract. So if somebody's truly selfless, if somebody's really oriented towards us, and they're starting to understand us, and I didn't mention this a minute ago, but it bears mentioning in the sense that when we talk about bonding and rapport, people communicate in certain ways. People perceive the world in certain ways. They have certain communication styles. And so are we thinking about, hey, I'm really good at bonding and rapport. I turn it on. I get in there. I get in the room. I turn it on. I make it happen. Or are we leaning back a little bit? And when we walk into the room, we don't put anything about us out there. We're paying attention to how do they communicate? Are they fast or slow? Are they loud or soft? Are they animated or reserved? Am I trying to be the best version of myself, or is this person more visually oriented, auditory oriented? Are they feeling oriented? How do I match and mirror those things to where I'm communicating them in a way that's native to their language? We move on to setting an upfront contract. What are the types of things that we talk about with our prospect before we actually get into the selling conversation?
Mutual expectation.
Okay, could you be a little more specific?
Like, hopefully by the end of our gathering, you will get to know me a little better, and I will know kind of where you're going, what your budget is, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Just kind of
Yeah.
good words too.
Let's set some ground rules. But what do salespeople, again, we go back to ABC. What do salespeople typically feel the need to do based off of what we just talked about? Close the business, get a yes. We ask questions. I read this in an article last year at some point. One of those, it seems like there's always like 12 articles on LinkedIn Pulse or whatever that says top 12 ways to do whatever. There's some good stuff out there, but one of them was top 10 ways to have a conversation with your prospect. One of those ways was never ask them a question that gives them the ability to say no. How do we feel about that? Pardon?
Smart,
Okay, why?
because then you don't get a no.
Okay. What if the answer is going to be no?
Don't ask that question.
Okay. So what if I said that our belief is the very first thing that I want to tell anybody is, hey, look, I have no assumption that we have any sort of fit for what you do at all. I'm not a fit for everybody. The stuff that I do is really expensive. And frankly, if the answer is that you just don't want to talk to me again, I hope you're really comfortable telling me that. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And frankly, I feel like we're going to be a lot more effective and productive if you are willing to do that for me. Is that something you're going to be comfortable, willing, and able to do? Some of us might do that. That might be new to some of us. But we go back to, again, I'll think about it. Call me back. The decision maker. This is one of the few areas that we really have an opportunity to exert control in the selling situation. So whatever our biggest problem is, we can say, hey, a lot of times people tell me that they're going to have to bring somebody into a conversation before they can make a decision. If we get to the end of our conversation and there's somebody else, or if at any point in the middle of the conversation you realize that somebody else is going to have to be involved in this, do you mind stopping me and letting me know so we can bring them into the conversation? Hey, my biggest fear is that you're going to tell me that if I make a proposal to you, that this is going to be too expensive. If you feel that way, do you mind just going ahead and telling me that? Put all those things up front. We have a Sandler rule, and I'm giving away a book today. That's one of the door prizes. 49 Sandler rules. If you're going to fight up front. Whatever our biggest objective is, or our biggest objection, let's figure out how to clear that up in the front so it doesn't become a problem later. Here, we talk about pain, money, and decision. Now, pain is certainly not an uncommon or unfamiliar topic in the world of selling. I think every selling process has something about pain. The pink sheets, blue sheets, the find the fox, the spin, all that stuff. It's got something about pain. But our belief is people buy emotionally and they justify intellectually. When we're adding value, are we connecting those things to something that they're actually committed to? So more than finding the reason that they might want to do this or putting them in a position to be able to say yes, through all of this, we want to understand, hey, is this problem bad enough for you to do something about? Hey, look, this is a lot of money. I recognize you probably weren't anticipating spending this kind of money. How are you going to be able to justify this type of expense? You know, I know you don't have the budget for it right now, so are you sure that that's something you're ready, willing, and able to commit to? Are the problems bad enough for that? Okay, and hey, before I give you a proposal, I just want to be sure that, is there anybody else that would need to be involved in this conversation? Because if there is, why don't we just defer until they're in the room and we can have that conversation? Now, maybe that might be a common or familiar concept for some of you, or a lot of you even. But if you're in a situation where you hear things like, hey, I need to talk to my partner, the proposal looks great, or I need to rung this up the flagpole to corporate, we'll get back to you. Maybe that's something that you can take away and implement in your business. By this point, when we get down to the actual presentation, it's not really a presentation. In our world, we call it fulfillment. Because we're just fulfilling something that they've already committed to. So there are no shocks, there are no surprises, and there's nothing else that they haven't heard about, talked about, and that we haven't heard from them that they are going to be committed to doing and implementing and changing. So by this point, if you get this far in the conversation and haven't gotten to know yet, when you give the proposal, it should be like, what happens if you jump off of a boat? You hit water. If we've got their commitment every step along the way, and we know that they're committed to telling us no, when we give the proposal, we're just taking that step off the side, falling down and hitting water. The last step, I don't think we have time to get to today. Maybe we can talk about it sometime else, but are we done?
We're done.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here.
How about questions first?
Oh, I would love to take questions. Number 7 is called post-sell. Post-sell. And what we mean by post-sell is, hey, Donna, I really appreciate the fact that you're telling me you want to do business with me. I just want to be sure this is a good fit for you. Are you sure you want to do this? Because what's one of the worst things that can happen to us after we've accepted an order? Canceled, buyer's remorse. This is also a place where, has anybody ever had somebody say, hey, here's 3 spots, I need you to write down 3 names, somebody that I hope you can refer to me? Anybody ever had that and it's a little uncomfortable on your end? This is a place where we say, at some point, you're going to be able to look in the rear view and say, yeah, they accomplished what they said they were going to. And I need to know from you when that point is, and if you're going to be comfortable having a conversation with me about other people that maybe I should talk to. So we do it all on their terms. People don't argue with their own data. If they said 6 months, if they say 6 years, I'm waiting 6 months or 6 years because I'm selfless and it's got to be all about them. Otherwise, I'm a cheesy, shyster, pushy sales guy. Do we have time for one more?
Sure.
What else? Yeah.
Aren't there occasions when you're full, you say, okay, now can you pay for this? And you don't know whether they can or not. And
So,
therefore, they fool you.
yeah. So you'll ask a question and they give you a disingenuous response? So we have another rule. It's kind of it's tough a rule. There are no bad prospects, only bad salespeople. I'm not saying you're a bad salesperson at all. I know you've been doing what you do for a long time already. But what we mean by that is ultimately we have to inspect what we expect. So you're telling me you have a budget, and typically we see that studies show that people need to be asked the same question about 3 times different ways before they give an honest, truthful, non-intellectual smokescreen response. So we have techniques and the processes for how people learn how to do that. Anything else?
Bill, thank you.
All righty, thank you. Oh, excellent.